Welcome to another episode from Perfect English Podcast. In today's episode, I'm going to share with you one lesson from my online course, Perfect English Fix Your Common Errors. You will learn to identify and fix common mistakes related to 10 key words, and you will learn about that in context thanks to the conversation we have with our friend Roberto. So now let's get to the lesson, but before we do, let me tell you that I have included a link in the description of this episode for you if you would like to go and check out this course on Udemy. Enjoy! Welcome to a new day of Perfect English Fixing Common Errors, a new lesson, and new 10 common mistakes to fix. Let's find out about Roberto's day. Hi Roberto, tell us about your day.
Hi everybody. Today I had a shower, dressed myself, and went out to watch a movie. A friend suggested that I watch Halloween, but I hate horror movies, so I wanted to watch another. I watched a movie about a country that was separated into two smaller countries and a family that was torn apart. The wife kept struggling until she joined with her husband at the end of the movie. The movie was so immersive that you could feel the smell of the ocean in one of the scenes. I like the scene when the wife danced pop music with the soldiers to distract them from the checkpoint where she smuggled her son and later herself. The father on the other side of the border struggled as well because his daughter needed to get an operation on her back, and he had no money at all, but he managed to get help for his daughter. The film can in fact be seen from many different aspects. I rather drama films to action and horror films that have a lot of killing and violence with no real story or meaning. And that was all about today.
Thank you, Roberto. Now, Roberto's English was almost perfect. He made a few mistakes, but not to worry. We're here to help. To help Roberto correct his common mistakes, we will focus on the following 10 key words today. Dress, another, separate, join, smell, dance, operation, fact, aspect, and rather. Now let's start with the first key word, dress. Let's see how Roberto used this word. He said, today I had a shower, dressed myself, and went out to watch a movie. Now when we talk about dressing in general, and not just about a t-shirt or a sweater or a jacket, we don't say dressed myself, we say get dressed. So Roberto here should say, today I had a shower, got dressed, and went out to watch a movie. Now let's move to the second key word, and that is another. Let's take a look at this example. Rio has another important site such as the famous football stadium. Pay attention to the difference between another and other. Another, we use it with singular, and other, we use it with plural. For example, we say another child, but we say other children. So here we're talking about sites. We're talking about other plural things. So the sentence should be, Rio has other important sites, such as the famous football stadium, not another. Let's take another example. He gave the class another homework. Another is used only with singular countable noun, like when we say, we need another chair. But if we want to use the same meaning with an uncountable noun, we use some more or more on its own. Like when we say, we need some more furniture or we need more furniture. So this sentence should be, he gave the class some more homework. Let's take a look at some more examples. I hate horror films. Let's watch another. If Henry is busy, get another man to help you. Can't you use another's computer? When you mean a different person or thing or place, use someone else, something else, or somewhere else. Like when we say, I get fed up with the job and decided to do something else. So here, when we go back to the sentences, we know that another is wrong and we need to use other expressions. So for the first sentence, we say, I hate horror films. Let's watch something else. For the second one, if Henry is busy, get someone else to help you. And for the last one, we say, can't you use someone else's computer, not another's computer? Let's take a look at some more examples. There is also another point that is worth mentioning. Also, another way to lose weight is to eat less. We don't use also another. Another on its own is enough. So here we need to leave also out. We need to say for the first sentence, there is another point that is worth mentioning. And that has the meaning of also without saying also. Actually, saying also is a mistake. And for the second sentence, we say another way to lose weight is to eat less without saying also another. Let's take a look at this example. Families fall into two categories. One is the composite family, another is the nuclear family. When you are talking about two people or things, use the other, not another. Like when we say one of the twins is called Yuki and the other is called Azusa. So going back to this sentence, we see that we need to change another and put instead the other. We should say families fall into two categories. One is the composite family, the other is the nuclear family. And now for one last example. Without a car, it takes a long time to get from a place to another. The expression goes from one to another, not from A to another. Like when we say the job involves traveling from one country to another, not from a country to another. So here we should fix the sentence by saying, without a car, it takes a long time to get from one place to another. Now let's see how Roberto used this word. He said a friend suggested that I watch Halloween, but I hate horror films, so I wanted to watch another. And here we know that Roberto means something else. So he should say, but I hate horror films, so I wanted to watch something else. And now let's move to the next keyword, separate. Let's take a look at this first example. Americans can be separated into a number of ethnic groups. England was separated into 650 constituencies. We have here the word separate that is not exactly used in the correct meaning of separate. To separate means to place or keep people or things apart from one another. Like when we say break an egg into a bowl and separate the white from the yolk. The word we need here in those two examples is divide. Divide means cause something to consist of or be seen as a number of parts or groups or sections, like the manufacturing process is divided into 3 stages. So if we go back to the sentences, we know that we should replace separate with divide. So we should say Americans can be divided into a number of ethnic groups, and England was divided into 650 constituencies. Now let's see how Roberto used this word. He said, I watched a movie about a country that was separated into 2 smaller countries. And we know here that the word separate is wrong, and Roberto should say, I watched a movie about a country that was divided into 2 smaller countries. Now for the next key word, join, let's take a look at the first example. You should join in our tennis club. We can join a club, join a society without using in or up. Like when we say, I'm thinking of joining the Labour Party. He left his job and joined the army. So the sentence should be, you should join our tennis club, not join in our tennis club. Now let's take a look at another sentence. I came to England a year ago to join with my husband. Now when we join somebody, we don't use with. And this is a common mistake, of course. So the sentence should be, I came to England a year ago to join my husband. Now let's see how Roberto used this word. He said, the wife kept struggling until she joined with her husband at the end of the movie. And we know that with is an extra word that is wrong, so we need to leave it out. Roberto should say, the wife kept struggling until she joined her husband at the end of the movie. And now for the next key word, smell. Let's take a look at these 2 examples. You can feel the smell of the fish a mile away. I could feel the smell of his cigar all over the house. Now the correct expression here is we smell something. We don't feel the smell of something. Like when we say, I can smell something burning. But notice how we can use smell of in a different way when we say, for example, the whole house smelled of his cigar. And now we're talking about how the house smelled, not what I smell. So here let's go back to these 2 sentences and correct them. We should say, you can smell the fish a mile away, not you can feel the smell of the fish. And for the second sentence, we should say, I could smell his cigar all over the house. Now let's see how Roberto used this word. He said the movie was so immersive that you could feel the smell of the ocean in one of the scenes. And obviously here, we just learned that we don't use this expression. We simply say smell. So Roberto should say the movie was so immersive that you could smell the ocean in one of the scenes. Now for the next key word, and that is dance. Let's take a look at these two examples. There were lots of young boys and girls dancing pop music. Then we danced with the music of Greece. Now when we want to talk about dance, and especially that when we put some music and we dance to the music. We don't dance with the music. So here the preposition used is wrong. We should use to. For the first sentence, we should say, there were lots of young boys and girls dancing to pop music. And for the second sentence, we should say, then we danced to the music of Greece, not with the music of Greece. Roberto here made the same mistake when he said, I liked the scene when the wife danced pop music with the soldiers. So here it should be danced to pop music with the soldiers. And now for the next key word, operation. Roberto said, the father on the other side of the border struggled as well because his daughter needed to get an operation on her back. Now the correct expression for an operation is to have an operation. We don't get an operation, we have an operation. And here it should be, the father on the other side of the border struggled as well because his daughter needed to have an operation on her back. And now for the next key word, and that is fact. And to understand the correct use of this word, we need to compare the following expressions. In fact, as a matter of fact, the fact is, and actually. To develop previous statement, you usually use in fact or as a matter of fact. For example, when we say the winter of 1940 was very bad, in fact, most people say it was the worst winter they had ever experienced. Or when we say Martin doesn't like his new job, as a matter of fact, he's thinking of leaving. So here we're developing a previous statement. So the two things are linked in this way. We can use in fact or as a matter of fact. Do not use in fact or as a matter of fact in general or introductory statements. For example, if we say in the last 2 decades, advances in technology have changed the face of industry. It is a common mistake to add in fact to this sentence by saying, for example, technology have in fact changed the face of industry. This is an introductory or a general statement. We don't use in fact or as a matter of fact with it. To correct what someone thinks or supposes, we use in fact, as a matter of fact, or actually. For example, he's a friend of yours, isn't he? No, he isn't. As a matter of fact, I've just met him. So here you're correcting what the other person thinks or supposes. Let's see another example. People think they've got lots of money, but in fact, they're quite poor. Or when we say, I'm sorry to have kept you waiting. Well, actually, I've only just arrived.
Stay with us. We'll be right back.
Looking to enhance your English skills while exploring a world of knowledge? Then English Plus Podcast website is just for you. Dive into diverse topics ranging from science to literature, history to business, and myths to modern insights. Each episode from our podcast or article from our magazine is a journey of learning and discovery, designed to not only improve your language skills, but also broaden your understanding of the world. Join us at English Plus Podcast, where language meets limitless learning. Tune in today and take your English to the next level. Visit EnglishPlusPodcast.com to start your journey. English Plus Podcast, language, learning, enlightenment. Never stop learning with English Plus. So you see, here we want to correct what someone thinks or supposes. We can use in fact, as a matter of fact, or actually. We can use the fact is, with or without that, to introduce your main point, especially when this explains the real truth about a particular situation. For example, we can say, I'm not surprised that he's looking worried. The fact is that he's been spending more than he earns. Or we can say, we don't really want to go, but the fact is that we don't have any choice. Now, based on what we discussed here, let's see how Roberto used this word and see if we can fix it for him. He said the film can in fact be seen from many different aspects. And here, in fact, is an extra word. There's no need to use in fact because this is a general statement. So we should leave it out. And now for the next keyword, aspect. Let's take a look at these two examples. From a biological aspect, the two plants are very similar. History can be studied in many different aspects. Now the word aspect means one of the parts or features of a situation, idea, a problem, etc. Like when we say modern technology affects all aspects of our daily lives. The book concentrates on the cruel aspects of war. A point of view is different, is a particular way of looking at a situation, event, problem, etc. So when we say from a vegetarian point of view, these new controls on meat preparation are of little interest. Or we can say, what does the process of getting old mean from a medical point of view? Or we can say, I wish you'd try and see things from my point of view for a change. So if we go back to the sentences, we know that there's something wrong. We need to fix them. We should say, from a biological point of view, not aspect. From a biological point of view, the two plants are very similar. And we should say for the second sentence, history can be studied from many different points of view, not from many different aspects. Let's take a look at another example. Another function of newspapers is to shape public opinion, and in this aspect, The Guardian is very influential indeed. Now, to refer back to something that you've just said, use in this respect, not in this aspect. They kind of sound the same, but they're so different. Like when we say Mr. Jones has far more experience than the other applicants, and in this respect, I'd say that he is the strongest candidate. So we should go back and fix the sentence by saying another function of newspapers is to shape public opinion, and in this respect, The Guardian is very influential indeed, not in this aspect. Let's take a look at one last example about aspect. At one time, it seemed as if men were stronger than women in every aspect. And here, when we wish to control the strength of a statement, we use in some, several, certain, many, all respects. Or in one or in this or in every respect, but not aspects. So, for example, we say in many respects, she is the best teacher I've ever had. We can say in some respects, the two cultures are very similar, not aspects. So let's go and fix the sentence by saying, at one time, it seemed as if men were stronger than women in every respect. Obviously, this is wrong. Now let's see how Roberto used the word. He said the film can in fact be seen from many different aspects. Now we fixed the part of in fact, but we still have aspects. And Roberto here means points of view instead of aspects. So this sentence should be, the film can be seen from many different points of view. And now let's move to the last keyword of today, and that is rather. Let's take a look at the first two sentences. The bed was rather comfortable. The weather is rather good today. When rather means to a small extent, it is usually used with words that express negative qualities. Like when we say the bed was rather uncomfortable, or the lesson was rather boring, or he's always been rather lazy. When rather is used with words that express positive qualities, it makes the quality stronger. Like when we say these cakes are rather nice, try one. So here, maybe we should use another word to say, for example, the bed was quite comfortable, or the weather is quite good today, unless you really want to give it this strong quality. Let's take a look at two more examples. They rather violent movies to romantic ones. I rather take him to somewhere less crowded. Now, when you mean prefer, use prefer or would prefer, not rather on its own. For example, she says she'd rather speak to you herself about it, not she rather on its own. Let's go back to these sentences and fix them. Instead of saying they rather violent films to romantic ones, we could say they prefer violent films to romantic ones, or they'd rather see violent films than romantic ones. And for the second sentence, instead of saying I rather take him, we should say I'd rather take him to somewhere less crowded, or I prefer to take him to somewhere less crowded. Now let's look at another example. I'd rather prefer just to lie on the beach. Now here we don't use rather and prefer together, but it is a common mistake. So here we should say, I'd rather just lie on the beach, or I'd prefer just to lie on the beach. And now let's take a look at two more sentences. I told her I would rather to go by train than to fly. I would rather going abroad for my holidays. Now here we come to the grammar part of it. We say would rather do something. We don't say would rather to do or would rather doing something. So here we should fix those sentences by saying, I told her I would rather go by train than fly, not to go. And for the second one, we should say, I would rather go abroad for my holidays, not going abroad. Now let's see how our friend Roberto used rather. He said, I rather drama films to action and horror films. And obviously what he means here is I prefer or I'd rather instead of I rather on its own. So he can say, I prefer drama films to action and horror films. Now to recap, we have picked and corrected the following 10 mistakes in what Roberto said. Instead of saying, I had a shower, dressed myself, he should say, I had a shower, got dressed, and went out to watch a movie. Instead of saying, but I hate horror films, so I wanted to watch another, he should say, but I hate horror films, so I wanted to watch something else. Instead of saying, I watched a movie about a country that was separated into two smaller countries, he should say that was divided into two smaller countries. Instead of saying the wife kept struggling until she joined with her husband, he should say until she joined her husband without with. And instead of saying you could feel the smell of the ocean in one of the scenes, he should simply say you could smell the ocean in one of the scenes. And instead of saying danced pop music with the soldiers, he should say danced to pop music with the soldiers. And instead of saying his daughter needed to get an operation, he should say his daughter needed to have an operation. And instead of saying the film can in fact be seen from many different aspects, he should say the film can be seen from many different points of view, leaving out in fact. And finally, instead of saying I rather drama films to action and horror films, he should say I prefer drama films to action and horror films. And that's it. Now before we are done with the lesson, let's hear it from Roberto, but this time in perfect English, after he has learned about his mistakes and he has corrected them. Hi, Roberto. Can you tell us again about your day?
Thank you for pointing out the mistakes that I made earlier, so I'll go again, only this time in perfect English. Today I had a shower, got dressed, and went out to watch a movie. A friend suggested that I watch Halloween, but I hate horror movies, so I wanted to watch something else. I watched a movie about a country that was divided into two smaller countries and a family that was torn apart. The wife kept struggling until she joined her husband at the end of the movie. The movie was so immersive that you could smell the ocean in one of the scenes. I liked the scene when the wife danced to pop music with the soldiers to distract them from the checkpoint where she smuggled her son and later herself. The father on the other side of the border struggled as well because his daughter needed to have an operation on her back and he had no money at all, but he managed to get help for his daughter. The film can be seen from many different points of view. I prefer drama films to action and horror films that have a lot of killing and violence with no real story or meaning. And that was all about today.
Thank you, Roberto. I hope you have learned new things today, and I'm pretty sure that your English is a step closer to perfect English. Remember, if you want to get the most of this course, you should take a new lesson every day. Now you are ready to take the quiz to check your understanding of the common errors we talked about today, and my advice is to take the quiz right away to check your understanding and to take the quiz again tomorrow before you start with the new lesson to consolidate your information. If you have any questions about anything you didn't understand in the lesson, please leave me a question in the Q&A section and I will answer all your questions. That's all for today. Thank you very much for watching, and I will see you again tomorrow.